And welcome back inside Getting Loose with Leon on Thursday, September 25th, year of our Lord 2025. It's 7 p.m. in the East, and we are getting ready for the Hollywood Casino 400 presented by ESPN Bet at Kansas. Oh, man. Should be a really good race course. One more before the next cut down after, the next week in the playoffs there. Still 12 drivers in the field right now. We saw some fireworks last week, certainly, especially between Denny Hamlin and his own teammate Ty Gibbs there. We'll see what carryover that has into this week at Kansas, a place where Denny has done quite well over the years. Of course, 4 all-time wins. They're the most all-time of anyone on the sport, but we'll get into that here in just a little bit. Make sure to click that subscribe button right down there in the bottom right-hand corner, and that way you don't miss an episode. You can get all the picks and make some money here. We've been on a pretty good little roll. No F1 this week, so just the NASCAR variety, and let's dive into it. And make sure to follow us as well on Instagram and Facebook and Threads and all that good stuff as well. You can find us on there at Getting Loose with Leon or Getting Loose with Leon podcast across those various social media accounts there. So all right, let's dive into it. NASCAR rolls into Kansas at Kansas City, the Hollywood Casino 400 presented by ESPN Bet. That is Sunday, 3 o'clock there on the USA Network. Of course, with NFL football going on right now, this is always another second screen experience for me. Definitely will have this on the second TV / the laptop and laptops, I should say, watching the in-car cameras and all that stuff while, got to watch a little NFL football as well. I wish the season was a little bit shorter to wrap up before football, but what are you going to do? Let's get into it. No surprise this week, the favorite, Kyle Larson. You can get him right now at plus 400 on Bet Rivers. Look, this guy was dominant. When he won here earlier this year, he led 221 of the 267 laps. He also won one of the closest Cup Series races of all time back in May of 24 when he beat Chris Buescher. I'm not going to try to even tell you the decimals because I failed that in school, but yeah, it was very very close. How many tenths and hundreds and all that stuff it was away, and so yeah, he's absolutely dominant there. This is the kind of track that sets up for him. These mile and a half kind of intermediate tracks, he does really well there. And we haven't seen the same Kyle Larson. We've talked about that, throughout the second half of the season, especially. But this is an opportunity where if he's going to get back into form and try to win a championship, this is going to be kind of the race to do it. So you can get him right now plus 400. Very chalky. I know, but I mean, sometimes you got to go with the chalk. You can get them plus 400 right now on Bet Rivers. Moving over, also chalk, the cold favorite, Denny Hamlin, plus 600 on DraftKings right now. A couple things interesting on that 11 card this week. Of course, the fallout of the incident with his own teammate Ty Gibbs last week. What are the dynamics in that JGR garage going to be right now? Obviously, they've talked about it a little bit this week. Denny's talked about it on his podcast. Ty Gibbs has made some comments, maybe, tossing a little bit extra gas on the fire there. Ultimately, all these guys want to win. Denny's racing for a championship, just like Chase Briscoe and Christopher Bell, his other teammates in the playoffs here. And Ty Gibbs is still looking for his first overall win. So I think all this frustration comes from guys in a good place. Is just a philosophical difference of when you race a guy and when you don't. And I get Denny's frustration that he had last week of, hey, we're going for a championship here. It's not like we were fighting for the lead or something like that. You can kind of put up a little fight and then mosey on out of the way. My own teammate shouldn't be the hardest car to pass on the track, I believe is what he said on his Actions Detrimental podcast. And yeah, I agree with that. But then you look at Ty Gibbs and he's saying, hey, if I roll over now, how many times do I have to roll over? It's like a dog. You roll over and present the belly. You rub that belly. How many times is he going to have to let someone rub his belly at that point and be submissive? He's obviously carrying that Gibbs name. There's a lot of people that, nepotism this or that or whatever. He wants to shake all those labels and carve out his own lane. So he's not going to get there by pulling over and letting people buy all the time. So it's a delicate line to walk. And that's what happens when you have these multi-car teams and Some guys in, some guys not in, and especially as Denny said, Ty's name is on the side of the building. It says Gibbs on there, so um, that definitely adds another wrinkle. But getting back to the race this week, I mean, he has been phenomenal over his career. 4 wins, the most all time here at Kansas. He won back in May of 23, had that last lap pass over Kyle Larson there. He's a veteran. He knows all the racing lines here. He knows where to make the moves. He's got knowledge of this track. If you're not trying to be super chalky and take Kyle Larson at plus 400, Denny, of course, is a good play here at plus 600. You're getting the longer odds, and you're backing the driver with, pretty much equal Kansas credentials here and getting a little bit extra value there, as opposed to, the chalkies of the chalk, but this is the second biggest chalk. So what are you going to do? But I mean, I think really it's going to be between those two guys this week. They've shown over their careers, year in and year out that they dominate at Kansas. All right. What other picks do we have this week? I like a top five for William Byron. One of the favorites this week, but you can get him for a top five at plus 100 right now on BetMGM. I think Hendrick is starting to figure out some things here. Obviously, with Kyle Larson's dominance at this track over the course of his career, you have that shared data all going through the same garage here. These Hendrick cars have been good on these mile-and-a-half tracks, and you're getting good value for him right now at plus 100 for a guy to finish in the top five here. It feels a little safe. You know me, I don't like to give minus odds unless it's F1, which it's pretty much, is it going to be Oscar? Is it going to be Lando? Every now and then it seems like Max flies up and wins a race like he did last week. But yeah, NASCAR, we like to get those plus odds in there. We don't like to be super chalky unless we have to. But this kind of feels like a safe play. I think Byron will be in contention to win this race. I think, between him and Larson, I would favor Larson to come away with a win. But a top five at plus 100 for William Byron, I would definitely take that. He's been consistent all season long. He is your regular season champion after all. So, give me William Byron at plus 100 there on BetMGM. Next up, sporting a sweet United States Air Force paint scheme this week, Bubba Wallace. You can get a top 10 for him right now at plus 120 on DraftKings. And look, this is going to be a big bounce back race. Him and Tyler Reddick both didn't really do too much last week. And, you thought a track like Loudon would be a place where 2311, would be in the mix. They would be up front and they would dominate a lot of times. They've had a lot of success there. Just those guys were never really factors at all in the race. And Tyler Reddick just looks like a guy that's kind of lost right now. I don't know if it's, the pressure from the lawsuit with the charters, if that's getting to him, or just a lack of confidence or what. But he just looks like a guy that's searching for something right now. Bubba, on the other hand, he has tasted victory lane here before, picked up his second career Cup Series win at Kansas back in 2022. He's shown a lot of pace here. He's got a lot of, really solid finishes here. And these Toyotas have been really good on these mile-and-a-half tracks. You can get them at plus 120 odds for a guy that's actually won a race here before. I like it. And, I don't think they're necessarily in a spot right now where they have to super press for the cut line. But, he definitely wants to perform well here. So he's definitely going to have some incentive, especially to shake off last week's performance. So, give me Bubba at plus 120 there on DraftKings. All right, a little sprinkle. I like to give you a little sprinkle here each week that you can put some money on for longer odds. That this week is going to be Joey Logano. You can get him at plus 2,200 right now on BetMGM. Listen, Joey Logano's won here before. I believe he has 3 all-time wins at Kansas. Now, of course, this was pre-next gen car era. I think the last one was back in October of 2020. But, hey, he's got the experience. He knows where the lines are, veteran driver. He's been here before. He's got a top 5 in his last 3 races, I believe. So that's one of his longest streaks going back to like 19, I want to say, for that stat. So, and this is the kind of guy who, if you're not looking for him, he sneaks up and gets a win. We've talked about this before. Every week it seems like late in the race, you're like, where the hell is Logano and the 22 been all day? Next thing you know, they're in seventh, they're in eighth, they're in sixth, they're somewhere around there. You get a couple of restarts late, and next thing you know, there's chaos. He's the kind of guy that can steal a win. He doesn't necessarily have to dominate. Um, he's the guy who, if there's a something that shakes the right way, he can get a win. And we've seen that Penske team right now. It seems like they got some stuff figured out. Ryan Blaney last week was, not dominant in terms of a laps led stat, but they were dominant in terms of just overall speed. They just looked like they were the fastest cars on the track. And I think they've got some things figured out there. They, had their tire wear figured out really well over at Penske. So yeah, you give me plus 2,200 on Joey Logano on the track that he's won at several times before in his career. Yeah, I'll go ahead and take that any day of the week for a little bit of a long shot odd there. So yeah, just to recap this week, we got Joey Logano plus 2,200 on BetMGM. That's my long shot. Give me Bubba Wallace plus 120 for a top 10 on DraftKings. William Byron for a top 5 at plus 100 on BetMGM. Denny Hamlin plus 600 to get a win on DraftKings. And of course, Kyle Larson to get a win plus 400 on Bet Rivers. That's going to do it for our picks this week. Make sure to join us next week. Also, make sure to join us as well Saturday morning, right back here, 9 a.m. for the Doing Lines podcast. My compadres, Scotty and Chris, will join me. We'll break down all the biggest college football games. We got 3 huge ones on Saturday. Penn State and Oregon, LSU and Ole Miss, and of course, Bama, Georgia. We'll get into that, all the NFL action as well, and get your picks ready for that for this weekend too. So make sure to join us back here 9 a.m. on Saturday morning for that. That's going to do it. Until next time, check your mirrors. We're good.